the time of recording of this video, May 1st of 2025, in April, there was only about 983 sales that happened within the city of Toronto for Toronto condos. This 983 sales stands in contrast to 1,974 terminations and 236 suspensions, which are essentially in practice terminations as well. Now, this is Toronto-wide, not accounting for other regions in the GTA. So in today's video, we're gonna do what I try to do, sometimes I don't have time to, try to go through every single Toronto condo sale that happened in April of 2025. Easier said than done. So as you guys can see, according to my system, when I select for every single sale that happened from the 1st to the 30th of April, we come to about 983. Of course, this will be updated in a couple of days. There's some sold conditionals that are still outstanding, some deals that haven't been reported. So this is not the final figure, but it's about 98% of the figure that it will be in a couple of days in May. And then lower price points, you know, the lowest price point, you see a locker, a parking space, so we also have to discount those as well. Now let's start to break it down, shall we? Let's start with downtown Toronto, C1 and C8. A total of 349 sales. Let's break it down further out of curiosity. Let's look at 1+1s that sold in downtown. In the lower price points, of course, you always see the usual suspects. 14 York. This one, 20 Byers Muse, this unit sold for $510,000. A 1+1 that went for $510,000. That's a pretty good. 20 Byers Muse is a passable building. It's more tenant friendly than buyer friendly. Not to say it's a building to avoid. There's certain layouts and certain exposures I like. What I like better is 38 Anuzi, which is right next to 20 Byers Muse. This one, 1+1 and 28 Anuzi, sold for $538,000. It did not have parking, and it's probably one of the smaller 1+1s. In 38 Anuzi, you have some 1+1s that are upwards of 700 square feet. You have others that are in the 500s. This unit in 770 Bay sold for $565,000, another 1+1. 770 Bay is a building that's quite student friendly. If you are a student out there looking for a rental, or a parent looking to rent something for their student to be close to the UFT, but still a good quality building, 770 Bay is a pretty good bet. You can do better, but you can also do much worse. The higher you go, for instance, you also have 1+1s that sold around $770,000. In this case, 10 York unit 5402. 10 York is a premium building. I think it's a tiny bit overrated. It's still a good building, don't get me wrong. Like, when I say it's overrated, I mean, like, people rank it as if it's a 9.5. I think it's more so like an 8.5. Pretty good, right? But you see that the range with 1+1s is pretty big, right? You can do small 1+1s in more older, less luxury buildings, or you can do pretty high-end 1+1s, such as this one, 10 York. And then the highest price 1+1 that sold were actually both on the Queen's Quay. Here you have 550 Queen's Quay unit 412, which was a 1+1 one washroom that sold for $845,000. And then around the $890,000 price point, you have this 1+1 and 401 Queen's Quay. This is the 550 Queen's Quay unit in question. I like 550 Queen's Quay quite a bit. It has some interesting floor plans. This has interesting finishes as well. I would probably have to say good quality just from the pictures, but it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. Wow. What's happening here? But you know, it got sold. I can't say anything bad, right? Sold for $850. Let's take a look at West Toronto. So all these W's designate Toronto West, like Etobicoke area, Mimico, Downsview area. In Toronto West, across all condo types, there was a total amount of 201 sales. And in Toronto West, the cheapest condos, whether there's 1+1s, 2 bedrooms, whatever it is always going to be these Dixon condos. So 370, 380, 390, 320. These Dixon condos are actually really ultra old Tridel buildings that were rental apartments at one time, now have been converted to a condo, but it's really not a good building whatsoever. I mean, it looks like a rental apartment. It has the sound cancellation and insulation of a rental apartment between units. It's just not a well taken care of building at all. Matter of fact, if I'm going to create a second list of Toronto condo buildings to avoid in terms of Toronto wide, probably going to include these Dixon condos, and I'll break it down a bit further. If you want to see that video, comment below. And then on the other side of the spectrum, in these lower price points, like for $400,000, this unit in 9 Mabel sold, unit 1123. It's a micro unit, and 9, 7, and 5 Mabel, I think, are also Tridel buildings. They're much newer, obviously, and they're not as bad as the Dixon ones. They're still not my ideal Tridel condos. If Tridel has a few misses, I would not rank 7, 9, and 11 Mabel as a miss per se, but they're my least favorite Tridel buildings, putting aside the ancient Dixon condos. But you can find some cheap purchases there in the Islington City Center area. Another 9 Mabel, for instance, this unit 420, sold for $448,000, another 1-bedroom, 1-washroom. In Mimico, there's these interesting Manitoba buildings, like 190 Manitoba, that I've covered many times. This was a 1+1 that sold for $500,000 on the dot. So once again, the lower price points. And then 250 Manitoba, for instance, this unit sold for $624,000, a 1-bedroom as well. But this time with 2 washrooms. The 250 Manitoba and 190, the 200s, not 251. The other Manitoba buildings, I think I said this in a recent video, they have the loft style staircase units, and 250 especially, I know, is a good fit for a lot of people looking for space and that loft style. It has its hiccups, of course, as a building. I think a lot of feedback I've gotten from people inside the building, people I know, is that the heating ventilation system, for some reason, is always an issue for people in that building. But besides that, it's a pretty decent building. And in the High Park area, because technically the High Park area is Toronto West, but obviously southern, but it's like the eastern boundary of Toronto, what we consider Toronto West. We have this unit in 1910 Lakeshore Boulevard that sold for $751,000 as a 2+1, 2-washroom with southern view. Really see the southern view here at play. But you'd be surprised, you can hear the street pretty vividly from these buildings. And these buildings have notoriously bad Wi-Fi connection. If you're at the lobby, I know firsthand because I'm an agent. I show these buildings all the time, and I need Wi-Fi sometimes to get access to the lockbox, and it's just atrocious Wi-Fi. I prefer these over the Mirabella condos though. This was a pretty good purchase, I would say. This unit in 5223 Dundas Street, a 2-bedroom, 2-washroom. I like 5223. Yet another Tridel building, but I actually like this one. I don't like it as much as the Viking Lane ones, but I like these ones as well. This 2-bedroom, 2-washroom in 2200 Lakeshore Boulevard went for $885,000, unit 3201. And I think I covered this actually recently on this channel when I was going through listings for sale. And I did say it has a lot of potential. And I think this is a pretty good purchase, I must say, because these views really do add a lot to resale value. They truly do. The unit itself, you can maybe pick apart here and there, but no question, a corner unit, $885,000, still most likely slightly above $1,000 per square foot. You can really see the proof in the pudding. Other 2-bedrooms in this building would be selling at the same square footage with a different exposure, will probably be selling less than $1,000 per square foot. Now let's do the east side of the city. Let's take a look at Toronto East, selecting all the E's. We see in Toronto East there was a total of 153 sales in April of 2025 thus far. Once again, thus far. You have some very cheap 2+1s obviously selling, and not so desirable buildings, such as 301 Prudential Drive, unit 1711. It's a 2+1, 2-washroom that sold for $430,000. And the unit itself looks perfectly fine. The area is not the best in some people's opinion. I'm honestly very flexible with the area and location for my own personal taste, but of course this area, is not one of the best. At 1,000 square feet, right, selling at 400s, it's less than even $500 a square foot, if my math is right. Ultimately, with Scarborough area, you have a lot of older depreciated buildings. I would say even more so than Toronto West, although Toronto West, you have your share of those. We discussed the Dixon ones, but it seems as if Scarborough area or Toronto East is a little bit more abundant in that sense. You also have your town center buildings and the Village Green ones. The town center ones are quite passable, depending on which one you go with. But you know, you have your 1+1s in town center, 70 town center 2103, unit 2103 sold for $505,000, and this one 60 town center unit 708, another 1+1 one washroom, sold for $508,000. And really, like for instance, when you take the town center ones, you take the Village Green addresses, you might see a bunch of Village Green addresses if you're looking to buy a condo. By the way, if you're looking to buy a condo, you already know what to do. My link is in the bio. Get in touch for any buying, selling, or leasing inquiries as well. Nonetheless, the Village Green addresses, there's like 2 or 3 of them. The bonus addresses, the town center addresses, they're all really quite like middle of the road. Like, I want to buy something cheap and affordable, but decent as well in Scarborough. They're not gonna knock you away. You're not gonna make a boatload of money in terms of appreciation. They're just for everyday normal people looking to buy a everyday normal condo that is maybe like a, you know, C+, B-. One of my favorites, 22 East Haven, unit 908. This one was a 2-bedroom, 1 washroom, which sold for $559,000. I actually like 22 East Haven a lot. You get a lot of affordable price per square foot coming out of that building. This one was around 700 to 799 square feet. If I had to guess, it's probably in the low 700s. You see it had a lake view. 2 bedrooms. The 1 washroom is a bit tough. You want to have 2 washrooms with a 2-bedroom, but it's a building I like. I actually quite like that building, and it's, you know, in the southern region of Scarborough. Not quite the beaches, close to the beaches. Interesting sale, 150 Logan, unit 617, sold for $670,000 as a 1+1 2 washroom. I've seen better units in 150 Logan, I'll tell you that right now. It's a pretty decent building. It's a low to mid-rise. You have a lot of these low to mid-rise buildings in Riverdale, especially loft style buildings. Speaking of which, for instance, 68 Broadview Avenue, unit 4, it's a 1-bedroom, 1 washroom, sold for $783,000 in South Riverdale. You really see the loft style nature of this building. I know a lot of people who like start drooling at the mouth when they see this type of unit. I think it actually looks pretty distinct and pretty nice. I'm not gonna lie. It's not, I'm a sucker for wood. Pause. I am a sucker for oak though, and like wood finishes. You know, sometimes people make fun of the fact that I might be an 80-year-old trapped in a young person's body, because I also love rugs and red colors, and I'm Persian, right? So anyways, all that is besides the point. My point is that I'm not usually into the loft style, but I actually like this one. And 783, it's around probably the mid 800s in terms of square footage, if not low 800s. Listen, pretty decent buy. Is it like a stellar buy? No, but pretty decent. And who am I to say, right? Maybe the buyer just loved the unit. Sometimes you can't put a value on that. And then the most expensive sale actually was this 2-bedroom, 2-washroom unit in the Beaches in 1852 Queen Street East, which admittedly my exposure to this building is one of those buildings that's quite limited. I believe it or not, I have not been to every single building there is. So this will be one of those. But it's a unit that sold for $1,442,000. Let's take a look. And yes, once again, you have your loft style, probably very high ceilings. There's a reason I've never been to this building, because it's probably minute number of units. You have your kitchen. That's a pretty nice kitchen right there. Yep, floor to ceiling windows. On, you know, pretty great location for people who want to live in this part of the city. Now, speaking of being Persian, let's take a look at North York. We have all the North York units up, 129 sales in April. 18 Harrison Garden, unit 1709 in Welldale East, sold for $527,000, a 1-bedroom, 1 washroom. The reason I would like to talk about this is because the builder of this is actually the builder of my building. He's an amazing boutique builder, but these buildings, 1816 by him, are probably not his best work. He could have done better with these. These are probably the most affordable Harrison Garden buildings. 55 Mount O'Reilly, a unit that has come up frequently on this channel lately. A building that has come up frequently on this channel lately, unit 2807. 1+1, 1 washroom, sold for $547. Just for a point of reference, I just purchased a 2-bedroom, 2 washroom with parking for a client in this building for $637,000. This was not in April, this was actually in March. And 55 Anne O'Reilly is preferred over 60 and 50 because the maintenance is actually under control in 55. 50 and 60 Anne O'Reilly have a very high maintenance price per square foot wise. 11 Eldora, these are classic condo townhouses that can be catfishy. As some of my clients on this channel know, we saw some Eldora condo townhouses and we were quite catfished. That's why you'll always find very cheap units. In this case, a 2-bedroom, 1 washroom in 11 Eldora Avenue, Unit 3, sold for $568,000. And what's catfishy about it is that the bedrooms are below ground. A lot of the listings do not show that. This unit in 503 Beecroft, 2 bedrooms, 2 washrooms, sold for $670,000 here. The problem with these Beecroft condos is that the maintenances are quite high, as you guys can see, but they're pretty decent building otherwise. Once again, you're gonna find a lot of units that need work, such as this one, but the benefit is they have that split layout. Bedroom 1 and bedroom 2 are opposite side of the unit, which you don't really get with a lot of newer buildings, especially in downtown. The only exception to that being actually 30 and 50 ordinance. That's why I actually like those buildings in Liberty Village. But the point of these videos is for you to compare and contrast to see what 650 is buying you in downtown versus North York. Not even, downtown versus North York, Toronto West, Toronto East, but how a 1+1 can go for $800,000 in the same area that a 3-bedroom might have gone for $800,000, right? This is just to educate the masses. You cannot just look at average and medians. You have to go through the transactions, and that's what I do for our clients, whether once again they're buyers, sellers, or tenants. And once again, get in touch with me. The link is in the bio. And to build on that point, this 2-bedroom, 2 washroom in 155 Beecroft sold for $740,000. Now, keep in mind, hypothetically, 155 Beecroft could possibly have high-tech plumbing. I'm not at liberty to tell you as a matter of fact it does or not, because I might have also gotten in trouble for this as well. But let's say if high-tech plumbing was common in some older condos in North York, which clearly it is the case, 155 Beecroft could be one of those buildings. And what a better way to end the video and the review of every condo that's sold in Toronto with this one, 660 Shepherd Avenue East. This unit which was a 2+1 with 3 washrooms, which sold for $1,350,000. This building is by the same builder as the first building we discussed, 16 and 18 Harrison Garden. Shane Ballet, a Persian builder who's a very boutique builder, and this is a fantastic, fabulous building. I love how he built it, and it has a private elevator. It's just a very high-end luxury building. It's probably one of the best buildings and most premium buildings you've never heard of. And it also made my best Toronto condos list. Anyways, guys, that is it for today's video. My microphone is running out of battery. My camera is giving me messages that it's overheating, and I am hungry. So I think all signs point to the fact that that's it for today's video. Thank you very much for watching. Stay safe, stay tuned, get in touch, subscribe. Thank you.